The night was colder than usual, the kind of cold that stung the skin and made every breath feel heavy. The city was quiet, only a few cars on the road, their headlights cutting through the dark mist. A black CEO, a man who had built his life through long hours, sharp decisions, and quiet discipline, was driving home after a late meeting. His expensive car hummed softly as it rolled past the dimly lit streets. Most people would have been thinking about bed at that hour, but his mind was still active, full of unfinished emails and business calls that would start again the next morning. As he turned down a long stretch of road, something unusual caught his eye. Near a bus stop, under the weak glow of a flickering streetlight, stood a young girl. She was not moving around to keep warm. She stood still, hugging herself tightly, her thin arms crossed over her chest. She wore a sweater far too light for the freezing air, and her shoes looked worn out. Her face was partly hidden behind her hair, but even from his car, he could see the way her shoulders shook from the cold. At first, he thought maybe her bus would arrive any moment. But as he slowed down a little, he noticed how empty the road was. He glanced at the clock on his dashboard. Almost midnight. No buses would come this late, not on that route. The thought of leaving her there bothered him. He gripped the wheel for a moment, debating with himself. Should he keep driving? After all, people might misunderstand a grown man stopping for a young girl in the middle of the night. But then he looked at her again. She looked so small, so helpless against the harsh wind, like she was fading into the night. He lowered his window slowly and pulled his car closer to the curb. His voice was calm, gentle, almost like a father speaking to a child. "Hey," he called softly, "you're freezing out here. Are you okay?" The girl didn't move right away. Her eyes widened with fear, and she stepped back a little, clutching her sweater tighter. She was clearly scared. The CEO understood. The world could be unkind, and for a young girl alone, trust did not come easily. He didn't push. Instead, he switched off his engine, rolled down the window fully, and placed both hands on the wheel so she could see them clearly. He wanted her to know he meant no harm. His voice was steady, low, reassuring. "Listen," he said, "you don't have to be afraid. You're safe with me. Let's go. I'll get you somewhere warm." The words hung in the cold air, soft but powerful. For a moment, the girl just stood there, silent, unsure. Her lips trembled, and it wasn't only from the cold. She wanted to believe him, but life had probably taught her not to trust too easily. Still, something about the way he spoke, the kindness in his tone, the calm in his eyes gave her a sliver of courage. She took one small step forward, then stopped again. I don't know you," she whispered, her voice shaky. He nodded, understanding her hesitation. "You're right," he said gently. "You don't know me. My name is Daniel. I was driving home from work and I saw you. It's too cold to be out here. If you don't feel safe, I can call someone for you. But I don't want to just leave you here." Hearing his name seemed to soften the wall she had built inside her. She looked around, as if hoping a bus or another person would appear. But the street remained empty, silent except for the occasional gust of wind. She bit her lip, struggling to decide. Finally, she nodded slowly, almost to herself, and whispered, "Okay." The CEO immediately stepped out of his car, not wanting to appear threatening, and walked around to the passenger side. He opened the door for her, then took off his thick coat and held it out. "Here," he said warmly. "Put this on first. You need it more than I do." The girl hesitated, then reached out with trembling hands. The coat swallowed her small frame, and for the first time that night, she sighed as warmth wrapped around her body. He noticed how pale her fingers looked, how tired her eyes seemed, as though she hadn't slept properly in days. She climbed into the car slowly, still cautious, but the heated seats and the shield from the icy wind made her shoulders relax just a little. He closed the door carefully and walked back to the driver's side. Once inside, he started the engine again, letting the heater run full. For a while, they drove in silence. The hum of the car and the faint sound of the heater filled the space between them. He didn't want to overwhelm her with questions, so he just let her settle in. After a few minutes, she finally spoke, her voice quiet, almost like she was confessing a secret. "I didn't know where else to go. I thought maybe the bus would come, but it never did." He glanced at her kindly. "You've been out there a long time." She nodded. "Since the evening. I thought I could wait it out, but it got so cold." His heart sank at her words. The image of her standing there, hour after hour in the freezing air, made him grip the steering wheel tighter. He tried to stay calm for her sake, but inside, he was both saddened and angry, sad for her struggle, angry that someone so young was left to face the night alone. "Don't worry," he said softly. "You're not out there anymore. You're safe now." She looked at him briefly, her eyes shining with a mix of gratitude and fear. She wanted to trust those words. She wanted to believe the stranger who had stopped for her. Deep down, something told her he meant it. As the car moved through the quiet streets, Daniel the CEO thought about how strange life could be. A few minutes earlier, he had been planning tomorrow's board meeting in his head. Now, he was driving with a young girl whose story he didn't yet know, but whose life seemed to depend on his decision to stop. He didn't know what challenges she had faced or why she was out there, but one thing was clear: leaving her alone was never an option. And so, the journey began not just through the city streets, but toward a moment that would change both their lives. The car moved slowly through the quiet city streets. Street lights flashed past like tired guardians of the night. Inside, the warm air from the heater filled the space, but the silence between the CEO and the young girl carried a weight heavier than the cold outside. Daniel kept his eyes on the road, careful not to push her with too many questions, but his mind was restless. Who was she? Why was she alone at that hour? He knew the answers would come only if she felt safe enough to share. The girl sat with her hands tucked inside his oversized coat, staring down at her shoes. She looked as though she wanted to disappear into the seat, as if the world had been too unkind and she had learned to make herself invisible. He glanced at her gently, then looked back at the road. He didn't want to rush her, so he allowed the silence to stretch until she broke it herself. "My name's Lily," she said quietly, almost like a whisper. Daniel smiled softly. "Lily. That's a beautiful name. It suits you." She gave a small nod but didn't lift her eyes. A moment later, she added, "I was trying to get to the shelter. They told me there would be a bed there tonight. But the bus didn't come. I waited and waited, and then the cold got worse." Her words pierced him. The image of a child wandering alone, relying on buses that never arrived, staying out in freezing weather, it was hard to imagine. He pressed his lips together, controlling the frustration rising in him. He couldn't show anger, not now, not in front of her. She needed calm, not fire. "Lily," he said softly, "I'm sorry you had to go through that. No one should have to wait in the cold like that. You did your best." She finally looked at him then, her eyes wide, almost surprised. Maybe she expected blame or doubt. Instead, his voice was warm, free of judgment. That made her shoulders ease just a little, though she still kept her guard up. For a few minutes, they sat in silence again. She seemed to be building courage in her mind, choosing whether to trust him further. Then, in a voice that cracked slightly, she explained more. "My mom, she left a while ago. It was just me and my stepdad, but things weren't good. I couldn't stay there anymore. I thought maybe someone could help me at the shelter. I didn't know where else to go." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He didn't push for details, but he could feel the depth of her pain. The kind of pain no young person should carry. He glanced at her again and saw the way she was fighting tears, determined not to break down in front of a stranger. "You're very brave," he told her gently. "I mean that. It takes strength to leave when things aren't safe. It takes even more strength to keep going when the world feels heavy." Her lips trembled, and she quickly turned her face toward the window so he wouldn't see the tear that escaped down her cheek. But he noticed, and he let her have the moment without drawing attention to it. Sometimes silence is the kindest response. The road stretched on, but Daniel's mind was already working. He had contacts in the city, people in charities, community programs, even legal services that could help her. But tonight, she didn't need paperwork or officials. She needed warmth, food, and the assurance that she wasn't alone. He decided he would take her home first. His house was large, filled with empty rooms that rarely saw use. It was warm, safe, and full of people who could help him make her feel comfortable. He knew some might question his choice, but his heart told him it was right. He glanced at Lily, who was still curled into the coat like a bird finding shelter in a nest. He whispered more to himself than to her, "You won't be left alone tonight." As they drove on, he tried to lighten the mood. "Do you like music?" he asked gently. She shrugged, still hesitant. He pressed a button, and soft jazz filled the car. The gentle rhythm filled the silence without demanding anything from her. To his surprise, after a few minutes, he saw her head tilt slightly, as if listening closely. Her shoulders relaxed just a little, the music weaving around her like a blanket. "My mom used to play music," she whispered, almost as if the words slipped out before she could stop them. "Not this kind. She liked old songs. But I remember she used to hum while cooking." Daniel smiled softly. "Music has a way of keeping memories alive. Even when people aren't with us, their songs stay." Her eyes glistened, but this time she didn't turn away. She held his gaze for a moment, as if searching for truth in his words. And what she saw there must have given her some comfort, because her expression softened. The car turned into a quieter part of town. The houses grew larger, the streets cleaner. Lily noticed the change and shifted uncomfortably. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice nervous. "To my home," Daniel said calmly. "It's warm, and there's food. You don't have to worry. I have a family and staff there who will help. I promise, Lily, you're safe." She hesitated, but something about the way he said "you're safe" carried a weight that eased her fears. She nodded slowly, though she still gripped the coat tightly. When they arrived, the house stood tall and welcoming, its lights glowing softly in the night. It wasn't a mansion built for show, but it was clear that the man who lived there had worked hard and succeeded. As he parked, Lily's eyes widened at the sight. She had never been to a place like that. Daniel walked around the car and opened her door gently, offering his hand. "Come on, let's get you inside. It's much warmer in there." For a moment, she froze. Big houses, for her, had always meant distance, not safety. But then she remembered his calm voice at the bus stop, his kindness in giving her his coat, and the way he hadn't judged her when she shared her story. Slowly, she placed her small hand in his. The warmth of his grip surprised her. It wasn't just physical, it felt steady, reassuring. They walked up the steps together. Inside, the house was filled with soft light and the smell of fresh bread. A housekeeper peeked out from the kitchen, surprised to see the CEO with a child beside him. But Daniel raised his hand gently, signaling that it was okay. "This is Lily," he said quietly. "She's staying here tonight. Can you bring her something warm to eat?" The housekeeper nodded with compassion in her eyes. Lily stood still, overwhelmed by the sudden kindness, the sudden change from the freezing bus stop to this warm home. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But in that moment, as she sat at the table and a steaming bowl of soup was placed in front of her, she felt a small spark of something she thought she had lost hope. And Daniel, watching her carefully, knew that hope was exactly where the journey had to begin. The warmth of the house wrapped around Lily like a blanket. After hours of standing in the freezing night, the sudden comfort almost felt unreal. She sat quietly at the long wooden table, her hands resting on the edge as steam rose from the bowl of soup placed before her. The smell of vegetables and herbs filled the air, making her stomach growl softly. She hadn't eaten much all day, but she was too shy to start eating right away. Daniel noticed. He took a seat across from her, not too close, giving her space. "Go ahead," he said gently. "It's all yours. Take your time." Lily picked up the spoon with trembling fingers. The first sip of warm broth made her close her eyes for a moment, letting the heat spread through her chest. It wasn't just food, it felt like kindness, and it softened something deep inside her. She ate slowly, politely, but every spoonful seemed to melt a little more of the fear that had kept her frozen inside. As she ate, the house seemed to come alive around her. The sound of footsteps upstairs, the faint chatter of Daniel's family, and the clinking of dishes in the kitchen reminded her that this was not an empty house. It was full of people, full of life. She shifted nervously, unsure if she belonged there. Daniel noticed her unease. He leaned forward slightly, speaking in a voice that was calm and reassuring. "You don't have to worry, Lily. You're welcome here. Tonight, you're safe." She looked at him, searching his face for any sign of doubt or hidden meaning, but all she saw was sincerity. Slowly, she nodded. After finishing her meal, the housekeeper brought her a cup of warm milk and a plate of bread. Lily thanked her in a small, quiet voice. The woman smiled kindly, treating her not as a burden but as a guest. That small gesture touched Lily more than words could. Later, Daniel showed her the living room. The fireplace glowed softly, casting warm light on the walls. A big couch sat in front of it, covered with soft blankets. "You can rest here tonight," he told her. "It's warm, and you'll have everything you need." Lily's eyes widened. She had expected maybe a chair, maybe a small corner. Instead, he was giving her the best seat in the house. She touched the blanket carefully, as if afraid it might disappear. "This is too much," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "No. You've been through too much already. You deserve comfort. Rest here. Tomorrow, we'll figure things out." She looked at him, unsure how to respond. Gratitude swelled in her chest, but the words felt too heavy to speak. She just nodded again, clutching the blanket tightly. As the fire crackled, Daniel sat in a chair nearby, not leaving her alone. He didn't question her further. He didn't press for details she wasn't ready to give. Instead, he talked about lighter things: the weather, the music she liked, even a funny story about how he once spilled coffee all over his suit before an important meeting. His calm presence filled the room with peace. Slowly, Lily began to relax. She even smiled faintly at one of his stories. It wasn't much, but it was the first smile he had seen on her face since picking her up. That small spark gave him hope. After a while, she grew quiet again, her eyes heavy with sleep. She curled up on the couch, holding the blanket close. Before drifting off, she whispered, "Thank you." Daniel watched as her breathing slowed, her body finally giving in to the exhaustion of the day. He stayed in the chair for a while longer, making sure she felt safe, before quietly turning off the lights. The soft glow of the fireplace kept the room warm. Upstairs, his wife had been waiting, curious about the unexpected guest. When Daniel joined her, he explained what had happened. She listened carefully, concern in her eyes. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "No child should be left alone in the cold. We'll help her." The next morning, Sunlight poured gently through the living room windows. Lily stirred under the blanket, blinking as the warmth of the fire was replaced by the brightness of day. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then she sat up slowly, realizing she wasn't on a bus stop bench. She was in a beautiful, warm home. The memory of the night before returned, and with it came a mix of relief and disbelief. Daniel's wife entered the room carrying a tray with breakfast eggs, toast, and fresh fruit. She smiled warmly. "Good morning, Lily. Did you sleep well?" Lily nodded shyly. "Yes. Thank you." "Eat," the woman encouraged. "You'll feel stronger with food in your belly." As Lily ate, Daniel joined them. He greeted her with a smile and asked gently, "How are you feeling today?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Better." He nodded. "Good. That's all I wanted for now. We'll take things one step at a time." For the rest of the morning, Daniel made some calls. He reached out to a trusted friend who worked with community programs and shelters. He explained Lily's situation, careful not to share more than she was comfortable with. He wanted to ensure she had support, not more questions that might overwhelm her. Meanwhile, Lily explored the house slowly. She noticed family photos on the walls, pictures of Daniel with his wife and children. In one, he stood with a group of employees, smiling proudly. She realized he wasn't just kind, he was someone important. But the thought didn't scare her. It only made her more grateful that someone like him had stopped for her. Later that afternoon, Daniel sat with her in the living room. "Lily," he said gently, "you don't have to tell me everything right now. But I want you to know this, you're not alone anymore. We're going to make sure you have a safe place to stay. You don't have to face the cold again." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time she didn't look away. "Why are you helping me?" she asked softly. "You don't even know me." Daniel thought for a moment before answering. "Because once, when I was younger, someone helped me. They didn't know me either, but they gave me a chance. I never forgot that. And now, I want to do the same for you." Lily stared at him, trying to absorb his words. It was hard for her to believe in kindness after all she had been through. But his voice was steady, his eyes honest. Slowly, she nodded, the first sign that trust was beginning to take root. That evening, after dinner, Daniel's children came to the living room. They were curious about Lily, but they greeted her with smiles and asked if she wanted to play a board game. At first, Lily hesitated. She wasn't used to being included. But Daniel gave her an encouraging nod. "Go on. Have some fun." For the first time in what felt like forever, Lily laughed. The sound was small, uncertain, but real. She laughed as she rolled the dice, as the children teased each other, as the room filled with the simple joy of play. Daniel watched quietly, his heart full. The girl he had found shivering at a bus stop was now laughing in his home. It wasn't the end of her journey. There were still challenges ahead. But in that moment, he knew she had taken the first step toward healing. And he silently promised himself that he would walk beside her every step of the way. The next morning brought a calm light into the house. The warmth of the fire was gone, but the sunlight made the living room glow in a gentle way. Lily woke up slowly, stretching under the blanket. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The softness of the couch, the quiet hum of a house alive with family voices, the smell of breakfast drifting in from the kitchen, it felt like a dream. But when she sat up and saw Daniel speaking quietly on the phone across the room, she remembered everything. He ended the call and turned toward her with a kind smile. "Good morning, Lily. Did you sleep well?" She nodded shyly. "Yes, thank you." "Good," he said. "Today, we'll see what we can do to make sure you're okay. But no rush. First, let's get some breakfast." The dining room table was already set. His wife had prepared eggs, toast, fruit, and a pitcher of orange juice. Lily sat down carefully, as if she wasn't sure she belonged there, but Daniel and his wife made her feel included. They asked if she wanted more toast, if she liked her eggs, if she wanted extra fruit. It was such simple kindness, but to Lily it felt extraordinary. She had not sat at a family table like this in a long time. After breakfast, Daniel spoke gently. "Lily, I know you've been through a lot. I don't want to overwhelm you. But I've been making some calls to people I trust. They can help us find you a safe place, with support and care. You won't have to face the cold again." Lily looked down at her plate. Will I have to go back to my stepdad?" she asked, her voice small, full of fear. Daniel shook his head firmly. "No. Not if it's not safe. That won't happen. I'll make sure of it." She exhaled, relief softening her face. That was the answer she needed most. Later that day, Daniel drove her to meet one of his close friends, a woman who worked with children in need. The office was warm and decorated with bright posters and drawings. The woman greeted Lily kindly, crouching slightly so her eyes were level with the girl's. "Hi, Lily," she said warmly. "I'm here to help you. You don't have to be afraid." At first, Lily was nervous. She clung to the sleeve of Daniel's coat, afraid of being left behind. But Daniel placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "I'm not going anywhere," he reassured her. "I'll stay right here while you talk." The woman asked gentle questions about Lily's school, her dreams, her favorite activities. Slowly, Lily began to answer. She spoke about how she loved to draw, how she wanted to be a nurse one day, how she missed her younger sibling who had been sent away to another relative. Every word was a piece of her story, carefully shared. Daniel listened quietly. Each time she spoke, he admired her courage more. Despite everything, she still carried hope. She still had dreams. That resilience touched him deeply. When the meeting ended, the woman promised to find a safe place for Lily to stay. "We'll work quickly," she said. "But for now, she can remain with you, Daniel, if you're comfortable. We'll arrange everything step by step." Daniel nodded without hesitation. "She'll stay with us until then. She's not going back into the cold." On the drive home, Lily was quieter, but there was a new kind of calm in her silence. She was no longer holding herself as tightly, no longer shrinking into her coat. She sat a little straighter, as though a tiny weight had lifted. Back at the house, Daniel's children welcomed her again. They invited her to join them in a game of cards. This time, she agreed without hesitation. She laughed more freely, her eyes brighter. Daniel and his wife watched from the kitchen doorway, their hearts full. Later that evening, while Lily was upstairs looking through some books Daniel's daughter had shared, his wife turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "She's opening up," she said softly. "You've given her something she hasn't had in a long time, safety." Daniel nodded. "But it's not just me. It's all of us. She needs to feel like she belongs, even if only for a while." That night, as the children prepared for bed, Lily hesitated at the stairs. She looked at Daniel nervously. Do I still sleep on the couch?" she asked. Daniel smiled gently. "You don't have to. There's a guest room upstairs. It's warm and comfortable. Would you like to stay there tonight?" Her eyes widened. "A whole room just for her?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, thank you." Daniel's wife led her upstairs and showed her the room. It was simple but cozy, with soft bedding and a window that looked out over the garden. Lily touched the blanket as if testing whether it was real. That night, for the first time in a long while, she slept in a bed where she felt safe. The following days brought more change. Daniel used his influence to speed up the process of finding Lily a permanent safe place. He contacted social workers, legal aid, and education programs. His name carried weight, and doors opened quickly. But he never treated Lily as a project or a problem to be solved. He treated her like a person, with dignity and respect. One afternoon, as they sat in the living room, Daniel asked her gently, "What do you want most right now, Lily? If you could choose one thing, what would it be?" She thought for a moment, then whispered, "To see my little brother again. I don't even know where he is now." Her words broke his heart. He leaned forward, his voice steady. "Then we'll try to find him. I can't promise how fast, but I promise I'll do everything I can." Tears filled her eyes. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that someone truly cared about her future. That evening, she joined the family for dinner again. They laughed over silly stories, teased each other about who ate the most, and shared moments that felt light and joyful. Lily didn't just sit quietly this time, she joined in, smiling, laughing, even telling a small joke of her own. Everyone laughed with her, not at her, and she glowed with a happiness she had nearly forgotten existed. As the night drew to a close, Daniel stood on the porch, looking out at the quiet street. His mind replayed the first moment he had seen her at the bus stop, shivering in the cold. That memory already felt distant, replaced by the sound of her laughter inside his home. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy for her. Healing never was. But he also knew that her story had already begun to change. He whispered to himself, almost like a promise, "You're safe now, Lily. You're safe." And for the first time, he believed that she believed it too. The weeks that followed brought a quiet but powerful change to Lily's life. What had begun as a cold night at a bus stop slowly turned into a new chapter filled with warmth, stability, and the feeling of belonging. Every day, she woke up in a safe room, ate meals with a family that treated her with kindness, and felt the gentle rhythm of life returning to her. She was no longer the girl standing alone in the freezing night. She was a girl with hope. Daniel kept his promise. He worked with his contacts to make sure Lily's case was handled quickly. Meetings were arranged with social workers who treated her with patience, not suspicion. Papers were filled, phone calls made, and programs discussed. All the while, Daniel stood by her side. Each time she felt nervous, he was there with his steady voice reminding her, "You don't have to do this alone." At school, arrangements were made for her to continue her studies. The school counselor checked in with her, making sure she had supplies and felt supported. At first, Lily was shy and uncertain. She didn't want to stand out, but slowly, she began to adjust. She brought home drawings she made in art class, and Daniel proudly pinned them on the refrigerator as if they were priceless treasures. His children celebrated her work, cheering her on, and she blushed with quiet happiness. One evening, after dinner, Lily sat at the kitchen table sketching with a pencil on a scrap of paper. Daniel walked in and looked over her shoulder. She had drawn a picture of a small girl holding the hand of a tall man. The girl was smiling, and the man was looking down at her kindly. Daniel felt his throat tighten. He didn't need to ask who they were meant to be. He just smiled softly and said, "That's beautiful, Lily. You have real talent." She looked up at him with shy eyes. "I like drawing because it makes me feel calm. And sometimes I draw the things I wish for." Daniel placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Then keep drawing. Because dreams have a way of becoming real if you hold on to them." The greatest dream in her heart, though, was still to see her younger brother again. Every night before bed, she whispered his name softly, like a prayer. Daniel hadn't forgotten her wish. Behind the scenes, he worked with lawyers and community workers to locate him. It wasn't easy. Paperwork was slow, and sometimes people dragged their feet. But Daniel was persistent. He knew this wasn't just about rules, it was about reuniting a family. Finally, one afternoon, Daniel received a call. His face lit up as he listened to the voice on the other end. When he hung up, he found Lily in the living room reading a book. He sat down beside her. "Lily," he said gently, "I have some news. We've found your brother." Her eyes widened, the book slipping from her hands. You found him?" Daniel nodded. "Yes. He's safe. He's been staying with a foster family. And soon, with the right steps, you'll be able to see him." Tears filled Lily's eyes. She covered her face with her hands, overwhelmed by the relief. Daniel placed his arm gently around her, letting her cry. They weren't tears of fear anymore. They were tears of joy, of hope finally turning into reality. The day of the reunion came. Daniel drove her to the small foster home where her brother was staying. Lily's heart pounded in her chest the entire ride. She clutched the seat belt tightly, her eyes wide with both fear and excitement. When they arrived, she saw a young boy standing nervously on the porch, his small hands fidgeting. The moment their eyes met, they both froze. "Lily," the boy cried, running toward her. She jumped out of the car, racing across the yard. She knelt down, and he threw himself into her arms. They clung to each other tightly, both crying, both laughing, their voices tangled in joy. "I missed you," Lily whispered again and again. "I missed you too," her brother sobbed, refusing to let go. Daniel stood back, watching with tears in his own eyes. The sight of the siblings holding each other after so much pain reminded him why he had stopped that night at the bus stop. It was for this moment, for a chance at healing, for a chance at family. From that day forward, Lily and her brother began to dream together again. With Daniel's support, the foster system worked to keep them connected, and plans were made for them to stay together safely. Lily was no longer carrying her burden alone. She had someone by her side again, and she also had Daniel and his family, who had become like a second home. Weeks turned into months, and Lily's transformation was clear. She laughed more often. She drew pictures not only of sadness but of joy, gardens full of flowers, children playing, families smiling. At school, she joined an art club. She even began talking about becoming an artist, though her dream of nursing remained close to her heart. Daniel watched all of this with quiet pride. His wife reminded him often, "You gave her a chance. That's why she's blooming now." But Daniel always shook his head. "No," he said. "I only stopped the car. Lily is the one who chose to be brave. She is the one who kept going." One evening, as they all sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lily looked at Daniel. Her eyes shone with gratitude. "Do you remember the first thing you said to me at the bus stop?" she asked softly. He smiled, nodding. "Yes. I told you, you're safe with me. Let's go." She nodded slowly. "That's when everything changed. Those words, they saved me." Daniel's heart swelled. He reached over and patted her hand. "Sometimes, Lily, it only takes a few words to open a new door. But you were the one who had the courage to walk through it." The story didn't end with one night. It continued in the days, weeks, and months that followed, with challenges still ahead but with hope lighting the path. Lily had found her brother again, found a family that cared, and found the strength inside herself to keep dreaming. And Daniel, the CEO who had once been just a stranger in a car, had found something too, a reminder that success isn't measured only in profits or deals but in the lives we touch, the moments when we choose compassion over convenience. As the night grew quiet, Lily leaned against the porch railing, watching the stars. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel small or forgotten. She felt safe. She felt seen. She felt ready for the future. And it all began with a cold night, a lonely bus stop, and a voice that told her, "You're safe with me. Let's go."